She woke in a 5-star hotel with a ring in her hand. Billionaire said they got married last night. The diamond ring glittered on her finger like a beautiful lie. Ava Richardson woke in silk sheets she couldn't afford, in a room she didn't recognize, married to a billionaire she barely remembered, and the man standing at the window claimed last night changed everything. Ava's first conscious thought was that heaven had surprisingly good thread count. Her second thought, arriving with the subtlety of a freight train, was that she was going to die. Her head throbbed with the kind of pain that suggested her brain was actively trying to escape her skull. Her mouth tasted like something had crawled in there, thrown a party, and forgotten to send out a cleanup crew. She cracked one eye open and immediately regretted it. Crystal chandeliers. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Vegas Strip. Marble everything. This wasn't her hotel room. Her hotel room had featured a suspicious stain on the carpet and a view of the parking lot. Ava sat up slowly, the silk duvet pooling around her waist, and that's when she saw it. The ring. A diamond solitaire caught the morning light streaming through the windows, refracting little rainbows across her brown skin. It was stunning. It was massive. It was on her left ring finger. What the? Her voice came out as a croak. The bathroom door opened with a soft click, and a man stepped out. Not just any man. The man. Ethan Hale, tech billionaire extraordinaire, Forbes cover model, and the subject of approximately 7,000 think pieces about whether genius excused arrogance. He looked unfairly perfect for someone who presumably had drunk as much as she had. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to his elbows, dark hair slightly mussed but in that deliberately careless way that probably required an expensive product. His blue eyes found hers across the room, and something flickered in them, concern, maybe, or calculation. "You're awake," he said, his voice measured. "Good. We need to talk." Ava clutched the sheet to her chest, acutely aware she was wearing nothing but a silk slip she definitely hadn't packed. "Where am I? What happened? Why am I?" She held up her hand, the ring catching light like an accusation. "Why am I wearing this?" Ethan crossed the room with the kind of easy confidence that came from owning things, companies, buildings, probably small countries. He was carrying a coffee mug, which he set on the nightstand beside her with surprising gentleness. "You're in the Bellagio. Presidential suite. As for what happened..." He paused, and for the first time, something uncertain crossed his features. "We got married." The words hung in the air between them like a piano suspended by dental floss. "We what?" Ava's voice scaled up several octaves. "Married. Last night. At a chapel on Fremont Street. Elvis officiated." He said it like he was reciting stock prices, factual, detached, slightly bemused. "I have the marriage certificate if you'd like to see it." Ava's mind scrambled for purchase on this information and found none. Married. She was married. To Ethan Hale. To a man she'd met, when? Last night? She pressed her palms against her temples, trying to squeeze memories out of her brain like water from a sponge. I can't. Fragments came back. A rooftop bar. Madison shoving drinks at her. A conversation about, what? Tax havens? Philosophy? Someone laughing, really laughing, in a way that sounded rusty from disuse. "You probably don't remember much," Ethan continued, settling into an armchair by the window with his own coffee. "We were both fairly intoxicated. You were at the Skyfall Lounge with a friend. We started talking. It escalated." "Escalated" is doing some heavy lifting in that sentence, Ava muttered. She took a sip of the coffee, perfect temperature, exactly the right amount of cream, and tried to organize her thoughts. Okay. So we got drunk and made a colossal mistake. We can fix this. Annulment. Nevada has annulment laws, right? Lack of consent due to intoxication? We could do that, Ethan agreed. But something in his tone suggested a but was coming. However, there's a complication. Of course there was. Because her life wasn't complicated enough. What kind of complication? Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, fixing her with an intense gaze that probably made shareholders nervous. Are you familiar with corporate board politics, Ava? The use of her first name sent a jolt through her. He knew her name. Which meant they'd talked, really talked, last night. I work in financial analysis. So yes. Then you'll understand when I tell you my board gave me an ultimatum 2 weeks ago: clean up my public image and settle down, or face a vote of no confidence. His jaw tightened. I had a solution. A contracted marriage to someone vetted, suitable, and equally invested in the arrangement being temporary and discreet. Let me guess, Ava said dryly. I'm not her. You are decidedly not Vanessa Carmichael, daughter of Carmichael Media Group, no. Something that might have been humor flickered across his face. Last night, I may have rebelled against 3 months of carefully orchestrated corporate strategy. Ava stared at him. You married a random woman out of spite? I married you because you were brilliant and funny and you called billionaires tax-dodging anxiety hordes with boat collections, Ethan corrected. The spite was just a bonus. Despite everything, the headache, the confusion, the diamond weight on her finger, Ava felt her lips twitch. That did sound like something drunker would say. Then reality crashed back in. Wait. You said you work in financial analysis. Ethan's eyes sharpened. Where? Ava's stomach dropped. Sterling and Associates. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ethan went very still. Sterling and Associates, he repeated slowly. The firm that's been quietly investigating Hale Tech for the past 6 months. Oh. Oh no. What would you do if you woke up married to someone who could destroy your career? Drop a comment below. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Ava watched Ethan's expression shift from surprise to something harder, more guarded. The easy almost humor from moments before evaporated like morning dew under a blowtorch. You're investigating my company, he said. Not a question. A statement of fact, delivered with the flatness of a judge reading a sentence. I'm a junior analyst, Ava said quickly, her mind racing. I compile data. I don't make decisions about investigations. I probably shouldn't have even said, she cut herself off, pressing her fingers against her closed eyes. God, this is a disaster. That's one word for it. Ava looked up at him, this stranger she'd apparently married in a tequila-fueled act of spectacular poor judgment. He was still sitting in that chair, coffee mug cradled in his hands, but his whole demeanor had changed. The vulnerability she'd glimpsed moments ago, the admission about board pressure, the hint of self-deprecating humor, had vanished behind a wall of billionaire ice. She recognized that wall. She'd seen it in conference rooms, across negotiating tables, in the polished facades of men who'd learned early that showing weakness was currency they couldn't afford to spend. Look, she said, setting her coffee down and pulling the sheet more securely around herself. I don't know what you think happened here, but I'm not some corporate spy who got you drunk and tricked you into marriage. I was in Vegas for a girls' weekend. That's it. I know. Ava blinked. You know? I had my security team run a background check while you were sleeping. He said it matter-of-factly, like this was a perfectly normal thing to do to one's accidental spouse. Ava Marie Richardson, 28, graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern with degrees in finance and economics. You've worked at Sterling for 3 years, you live in a studio apartment in Chicago that you're overpaying for, and you haven't taken a vacation in 18 months before this trip. Your friend Madison Chin practically dragged you onto the plane. Ava felt her face heat with a mixture of embarrassment and anger. You investigated me? I will investigate everyone. Ethan stood, moving to the windows overlooking the strip. Morning light painted him in gold and shadow. It's not personal. It feels pretty personal from where I'm sitting. He glanced back at her, something softening fractionally in his expression. You're right. I'm sorry. That was, he paused, seeming to search for the right word, Excessive. Excessive? Ava laughed, but there was no humor in it. You violated my privacy because we made a drunken mistake. That's not excessive, that's paranoid. In my world, paranoia is survival. Ethan turned fully to face her, and for a moment, she saw past the billionaire armor to something rawer underneath. Do you know how many people have tried to get close to me for the wrong reasons? How many smiling faces have hidden lawsuits, exposés, or schemes to leverage my name for their own gain? So you just assume everyone's out to get you? Everyone usually is. The words landed heavy in the room, and Ava felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. She remembered fragments from last night, not the details, but the feeling of them. The way he'd laughed, really laughed, like he'd forgotten how. The exhaustion in his eyes when he'd admitted he'd never done something just because it felt right. I'm not out to get you, she said quietly. I'm just trying to figure out how to survive this morning. Ethan's shoulders dropped slightly, tension bleeding out of them. Fair enough. He returned to the chair, this time sitting back instead of perching on the edge. For what it's worth, you're not in the sections of the Sterling investigation I'm concerned about. You're in, what? Preliminary market analysis. Revenue modeling and competitive positioning. Ava hated how defensive she sounded. It's important work. I'm sure it is. He took a sip of his coffee. But you're not looking at the acquisition fraud allegations. Ava's breath caught. She hadn't mentioned fraud. Which meant either he was guessing, or... You knew, she said slowly. You knew Sterling was investigating you before last night. Of course I knew. I make it my business to know when people are poking around in my business. Then why? She gestured helplessly between them. Why did you talk to me? Why did we? She couldn't even finish the sentence. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those unsettling blue eyes. Because for 3 hours last night, I wasn't Ethan Hale, Billionaire CEO with a target on his back. I was just Ethan, talking to a woman who didn't want anything from me except good conversation and terrible tequila. He smiled, and it was genuine, sad, and entirely too human. It was the most real interaction I've had in years. Something in Ava's chest tightened. She understood that feeling more than she wanted to admit. How many dates had she been on where the guy was more interested in her salary potential than her thoughts? How many friendships had faded because she was too busy optimizing her career to remember to be a person? I get it, she said softly. Being on all the time. Performing the role everyone expects. The living spreadsheet, Ethan said, and Ava's eyes widened. I said that? Among other things. You also informed me that my portfolio was criminally boring and that I should invest in roller disco revival. Despite everything, Ava laughed. Drunk me has opinions. Drunk you was delightful. His expression turned serious again. Sober us has problems. Understatement of the century. Ava pulled her knees up under the sheet, wrapping her arms around them. So what do we do? Annulment seems like the obvious answer, but you said there was a complication beyond the Sterling thing. Ethan grimaced. The board. If I show up Monday morning with an annulment from a drunken Vegas wedding, I'm done. The vote of no confidence will pass before lunch. And if you don't show up with a wife at all? Same result, just slower. He ran a hand through his hair, messing it further. I was supposed to announce my engagement to Vanessa next week. Instead, I married someone else entirely. The optics are not good. Optics, Ava repeated. Your career is on the line because of optics. Welcome to corporate America, where perception is reality and reality is whatever the shareholders believe. Bitterness crept into his voice. I built Hale Tech from nothing. Worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificed every personal relationship, poured everything I had into making it succeed. And now a board of suits who couldn't code their way out of a paper bag gets to decide if I'm mature enough to keep running my own company. Ava heard the pain beneath the anger, and suddenly the pieces clicked into place. They think you're like your father. Ethan's head snapped up, eyes sharp. Excuse me? Harrison Hale. Tech visionary, brilliant entrepreneur, terrible human being who burned through 3 wives and had a very public meltdown that tanked his last startup. Ava kept her voice neutral, analytical. You're afraid they see you as him. That's why the playboy reputation bothers you. It's not about your behavior, it's about the comparison. The muscle in Ethan's jaw ticked. You really did do your homework. I told you. I'm good at my job. She paused. For what it's worth, from what I've read, you're nothing like him. Harrison Hale was cruel. You're just, careful. Careful. Ethan tested the word. Is that what you call having every potential relationship vetted by lawyers? I call it sad, Ava said honestly. But understandable. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their impossible situation settling around them like fog. Finally, Ava spoke. Okay. Let's think about this logically. You need to be married to save your company. I'm already married to you, accidentally. What if, she paused, hardly believing what she was about to suggest. What if we just stayed married? Temporarily. Ethan's eyebrows rose. You're suggesting we commit this mistake? I'm suggesting we make it a solution instead of a problem. Ava's analytical mind kicked into gear, seeing angles and possibilities. You need a wife to satisfy your board. I'm already your wife, which saves you from the Vanessa situation and the annulment scandal. We could draw up terms, make it a business arrangement. 6 months, maybe a year. Long enough for you to secure your position. And what do you get out of this? Ava hesitated. What did she want? Financial security? Career advancement? A story she'd be dining out on for decades? Honestly? I have no idea, she admitted. But I know what I lose if I don't. Sterling will fire me the second they find out about this. Conflict of interest doesn't begin to cover it. At least this way, I control the narrative. Ethan studied her for a long moment, and Ava could practically see him running calculations, weighing odds, analyzing risk. You're serious, he said finally. Terrifyingly so. Ava met his gaze. Look, we barely know each other. Last night was clearly some kind of cosmic joke. But we're here now, and we can either let this destroy us both, or we can be strategic about it. Strategic, Ethan repeated, and something that might have been respect flickered across his face. The living spreadsheet strikes again. Do we have a deal? He was quiet for so long that Ava thought he'd say no. Then, slowly, he stood and crossed to the bed, extending his hand. 6 months, he said. Business arrangement. Full contract with terms and exit clauses. And Ava? His expression turned serious. Whatever's happening with the Sterling investigation, you need to tell me everything you know. Ava looked at his outstretched hand, at this impossible man and their impossible situation, and thought about all the careful plans she'd made for her life. None of them had included waking up married to a billionaire in Vegas. But then, drunk, she had called her a tragedy for never doing anything crazy. She took his hand. Deal. As their palms connected, Ava felt the ring press between them, a circle of gold and lies and maybe, just maybe, the strangest opportunity of her life. She just hoped she'd survive it. 2 hours later, Ava found herself sitting at a marble dining table in the suite's living room, wearing clothes that definitely weren't hers, designer jeans that fit perfectly, a cashmere sweater in deep emerald, even underwear in exactly her size, and trying not to think too hard about how Ethan had acquired them. My assistant is very efficient, he'd said when she'd emerged from the bedroom, freshly showered and dressed. And very discreet. Now that assistant, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s named Patricia, sat across from them with a laptop, taking notes as Ethan outlined terms like they were negotiating a merger instead of a marriage. Which, Ava supposed, they were. 6 months minimum, Ethan was saying, his CEO voice fully engaged. With option to extend if the board situation requires it. You'll move into my penthouse in Chicago. Separate bedrooms, obviously, but we need to present a united front. Wait. Ava held up a hand. Move in? I have a lease. A life. I can't just. We'll cover your lease, Patricia said smoothly, fingers flying across her keyboard. Plus a housing allowance for when the arrangement ends. Consider it severance. Ava's head spun. This is insane. This is negotiation. Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying her. You're giving up 6 months of your life to play my wife. You should be compensated fairly. I'm not a prostitute. I never suggested you were. His voice went cold. This is a business contract, Ava. I'm offering you money in exchange for services rendered, specifically, public appearances, social events, and convincing my board that I'm a reformed man. Nothing about that arrangement is sexual. Patricia cleared her throat delicately. Though we should address the physical intimacy clause. Ava choked on the coffee she'd just sipped. What? Standard in arranged marriages, Patricia said, utterly unfazed. Specifies boundaries around physical contact. Public displays of affection will be necessary, hand-holding, occasional kisses for cameras, that sort of thing. But private interactions remain strictly professional unless both parties consent otherwise. Ava looked between them, feeling like she'd stumbled into some alternate universe where people casually discussed kissing clauses over breakfast. This is completely surreal. Welcome to my world, Ethan said drily. Everything is a contract. Everything has terms. That sounds exhausting. It is. Something flickered in his expression, there and gone so fast Ava almost missed it. Loneliness, maybe. Or resignation. But it's safe. Clear expectations, defined outcomes, no surprises. Ava thought about her own life, her color-coded calendars and carefully optimized routines. She'd built safety the same way Ethan had, through control, through planning, through making sure nothing unexpected could hurt her. And look where it had gotten them both. Married to strangers, negotiating intimacy clauses. Okay, she said finally. Public affection, private boundaries. I can work with that. What else? Patricia consulted her screen. Financial compensation. Mr. Hale is offering $200,000 for the 6-month period, with bonuses for specific milestones, board approval, successful media appearances, that sort of thing. Ava's mind went blank. I'm sorry, did you say $200,000? It's standard, Ethan said, watching her reaction carefully. Less than I'd have paid Vanessa, actually. Her father wanted $500,000 plus stock options. That's... Ava did the math automatically. It was more than 3 years of her salary. It was grad school paid for. It was freedom. That's a lot of money. It's an incentive. Ethan's expression softened slightly. Look, I'm asking you to lie to everyone you know, upend your life, and spend 6 months pretending to be in love with me. That's worth compensation. Is it? Ava met his eyes. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like we're both just running away from our real problems by creating bigger ones. The words hung in the air between them. Patricia's typing stopped. Ethan was very still, his gaze locked on Ava's face. Maybe, he said quietly. But at least this problem, we can control. Before Ava could respond, her phone buzzed. She'd retrieved it from her hotel room an hour ago, along with her other belongings. Now she glanced at the screen and her stomach dropped. 17 missed calls from Madison. 32 texts, ranging from "where are you to if you're dead I'm going to kill you." I need to call my friend, Ava said. She's probably panicking. Of course. Ethan stood. Patricia and I will give you privacy. Take your time. As they moved toward the suite's office, Ava heard Patricia murmur something about preliminary media strategy and Ethan's low response about controlling the narrative. Then the door closed, and she was alone with her phone and the lies she was about to tell her best friend. She dialed. Madison answered before the first ring finished. Ava Marie Richardson, where the hell have you been? I'm fine, Mads. I'm sorry. I should have called earlier. Should have, Madison sputtered. You disappeared last night. I turned around for 5 minutes to talk to that guy from Denver, and when I looked back, you were gone. I've been calling hospitals, police stations. Do you know how hard it is to file a missing persons report when the person has only been missing for 12 hours? Guilt twisted in Ava's stomach. I'm really sorry. Unexpected things happened. Unexpected like what? Did you get kidnapped? Drugged? Please tell me you're not in a bathtub full of ice missing a kidney. Despite everything, Ava smiled. Both kidneys were accounted for. But, something did happen. Something big. How big are we talking? Scale of 1 to I joined a cult. Ava took a breath. I got married. Silence. Then, I'm sorry, I think this connection is bad. It sounded like you said you got married. I did. Ava. I know. It's insane. But I met someone, and it just happened. The lies came easier than they should have. His name is Ethan. We connected, and it felt right, and we decided to just go for it. More silence. Then Madison's voice came back, quieter, confused. You? Miss Triple-checked the lock before bed decided to spontaneously marry a stranger in Vegas? I know it sounds crazy. It doesn't sound crazy, it sounds impossible. Ava, you plan your meals a week in advance. You color-code your underwear drawer. You don't do spontaneous things. Maybe that's the problem, Ava said, and was surprised to find she meant it. Maybe I've been so busy being responsible that I forgot how to be happy. So you married someone you just met? Yes. In Vegas? Yes. And you're, what, staying married? Coming back to Chicago with a husband? Ava looked at the ring on her finger, catching light like a promise or a trap. Yeah. I am. I need to meet him, Madison said immediately. Today. Right now. I need to make sure he's not some creep who took advantage of you. He's not. I promise. Ava closed her eyes. Look, I'll explain everything when I get back, okay? But I'm safe. I'm happy. And I'm sorry I scared you. Madison sighed, long and heavy. I don't understand this, Ava. At all. But you're an adult, and I guess if you want to make insane life choices, that's your right. A pause. He better treat you like a queen, or I'm flying to wherever you are and committing murder. Noted. Ava's throat tightened. I love you, Mads. Love you too, you absolute lunatic. Call me later with details. And I mean details. After they hung up, Ava sat in the silence of the suite, processing what she'd just done. She'd lied to her best friend. Committed to a fake marriage. Agreed to move in with a stranger for $200,000. The responsible part of her brain, the part that had kept her safe and successful for 28 years, was screaming. But another part, smaller and quieter, whispered, what if this is exactly what you need? The office door opened. Ethan emerged, Patricia trailing behind with her laptop. Everything okay? He asked. Fine. Madison's suspicious, but she'll come around. Ava stood, squaring her shoulders. What's next? Next, we sign. Patricia produced a stack of papers that would have made a law firm jealous. Standard prenuptial agreement, modified for current circumstances. You should have your own lawyer review it. I don't have a lawyer. Then I recommend you get one. This is too important to rush. Ava appreciated that, the recognition that even in this bizarre situation, she deserved protection. She started to say so when Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression went carefully blank. I need to take this. Excuse me. He moved to the far windows, phone pressed to his ear. Mother. What a surprise. Even from across the room, Ava could hear the sharp, cultured voice on the other end. She couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear, angry. Yes, I'm aware the photos are everywhere, Ethan said, his voice tight. No, I don't consider it a disaster. Actually, he was cut off by another burst of sound. Mother, I'm 32 years old. I don't need your permission to get married. Ava's eyes widened. Photos. Everywhere. She grabbed her own phone and pulled up Google, typing Ethan Hale married. The results made her stomach drop. Tech billionaire's secret Vegas wedding screamed the first headline. Below it, photos, blurry but unmistakable. Her and Ethan leaving the chapel, her in a borrowed veil, him in a rumpled suit, both of them laughing. Another shot of them kissing, his hands cupping her face, her arms around his neck. They looked happy. They looked in love. They looked like a complete lie. Oh my God, Ava whispered. Patricia appeared at her elbow. TMZ posted it an hour ago. It's been picked up by every major outlet. Congratulations, Mrs. Hale. You're famous. The name hit Ava like a physical blow. Mrs. Hale. That was her now. At least for the next 6 months. Across the room, Ethan was still arguing with his mother, his free hand pressed against the window like he was holding himself up. Because I wanted to, Mother. Because for once in my life, I did something that felt right instead of strategically sound. His voice cracked slightly. Can't you just be happy for me? Whatever response he got made his shoulders slump. Of course. I should have known better than to expect support. I'll talk to you later. He hung up and stood there for a long moment, forehead against the glass, before turning back to face them. His expression was carefully controlled, but Ava could see the hurt underneath. My family's thrilled, as you can imagine, he said dryly. They'll come around, Patricia said briskly. Once they realize this marriage solves the board problem, they'll be singing hallelujah. Maybe. Ethan's eyes found Ava's. The world knows now. This is real, or at least, it has to look real. Are you sure you want to do this? Ava looked at him, this complicated, guarded man who'd married her in a moment of tequila-fueled rebellion. This stranger who was now her husband. This problem was somehow also becoming her solution. She thought about her tiny apartment, her color-coded life, her careful plans that had led exactly nowhere except to lonely competence. She thought about what Drunker had said last night. I'm basically a living spreadsheet. Maybe it was time to add some chaos to the formula. I'm sure, she said. Let's do this. Ethan crossed to her and extended his hand again. This time, when she took it, it felt less like a business deal and more like jumping off a cliff together. Welcome to the family, he said. Such as it is. As Patricia bustled around them with contracts and schedules and plans, Ava looked down at their joined hands and wondered what the hell she'd just gotten herself into. The answer, she suspected, was trouble. The very best kind. Ava had known, intellectually, that billionaires traveled differently than normal people. But knowing and experiencing were two very different things. The cream leather seats were more comfortable than her bed at home. There was a full bar, a bedroom in the back, and a flight attendant who'd appeared with champagne and fresh strawberries before they'd even taken off. This is too much, Ava muttered, buckling herself into a seat that probably cost more than her car. Ethan looked up from his laptop across the aisle. Too much what? All of it. The jet. The suite. The clothes. She gestured at the cashmere sweater. Patricia bought me $1,000 outfit like it was nothing. It was nothing. To me, at least. He closed the laptop, giving her his full attention. Is that going to be a problem? The money? I don't know yet, Ava admitted. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Detroit with my mom and grandmother. We weren't poor, but we counted pennies. This, she waved at their surroundings. This is a different universe. Ethan was quiet for a moment. My father grew up poor too. South side of Chicago, single mother, food stamps. He used to say it was what drove him, the fear of going back to nothing. His expression darkened. It also made him cruel. He hoarded wealth like it could fill whatever was empty inside him. It couldn't, obviously. But he died trying. Is that why you're different? Ava asked softly. Because you saw what the money did to him? I'm not different. I'm just better at hiding it. Ethan's smile was bitter. I have the same obsessions, the same need for control. I've just built prettier cages. The jet engines roared to life, and Ava felt the plane begin to taxi. Through the window, Vegas fell away below them, the strip shrinking to a glittering line in the desert, the chapels and casinos and mistakes becoming tiny, almost insignificant. For what it's worth, she said, I don't think you're like your father. You don't know me well enough to make that judgment. Maybe not. But I'm about to spend 6 months learning. She pulled out her own laptop, her battered 6-year-old Dell that looked positively tragic next to his sleek MacBook. Speaking of which, we should probably get our stories straight. People are going to ask questions. Patricia's already drafted talking points. Ethan pulled up a document and angled his screen toward her. We met at a financial conference 3 months ago. Started talking, realized we had a connection. Keep it quiet because of your work situation and my board issues. Vegas was spontaneous but not completely out of the blue. Ava scanned the document. It was thorough, detailed, and almost believable. Almost. People who know me will never buy that I kept a relationship secret for 3 months, she said. I tell Madison everything. Then tell her the truth. Ava's head snapped up. What? Not the whole truth, Ethan clarified. But enough. Tell her it's an arrangement. That we're helping each other out. She's your best friend, you'll need someone to talk to during this, and it might as well be someone who knows what's really happening. You trust her with that? I trust you. He said it simply, like it was obvious. If you say she'll keep quiet, I believe you. Something warm unfurled in Ava's chest, unexpected and dangerous. She pushed it down. Okay, she said. I'll talk to her when we land. What about your people? Who knows the truth? Patricia. My lawyer. My head of security. Ethan ticked them off on his fingers. People who are paid very well to keep secrets. Must be lonely, Ava said before she could stop herself. Only trusting people you pay. Ethan's expression shuddered. It's practical. It's sad. Spoken like someone who's never been betrayed by everyone they trusted. The words hung heavy between them. Ava wanted to ask what had happened, who had hurt him, but the plane banked sharply, and the moment passed. The flight attendant appeared with lunch, seared salmon and asparagus that looked like art. Ava ate mechanically, trying not to think about the fact that in a few hours, she'd be in Chicago. Moving into Ethan's penthouse. Starting a life built on lies. Halfway through the meal, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something complicated crossed his face. The board wants to meet, he said. Tomorrow. Emergency session to discuss my recent life choices. That was fast. They're scared. A mystery wife throws all their careful plans into chaos. He typed out a response, fingers flying. They want to meet you. Assess whether you're an asset or a liability. Ava's stomach clenched. Tomorrow? I don't even know how to, what do I? Breathe, Ethan said, looking up from his phone. You'll be fine. You're brilliant, articulate, and you have an MBA from Northwestern. They'll love you. I don't have an MBA. You do now. According to our official story, anyway. Patricia's already backdating the records. Ava choked. That's illegal. That's thorough. Ethan's expression was utterly calm. Welcome to the world of billionaire problem solving. We don't break laws, we rewrite narratives. Is there a difference? Not one that matters. Ava set down her fork, appetite gone. Ethan, I'm serious. I can't walk into a room full of board members and pretend to be someone I'm not. They'll see through it in seconds. Then don't pretend. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, that intense focus aimed at her like a spotlight. Be exactly who you are. Smart, capable, unimpressed by money. They'll respect that more than any performance. And if they don't? Then we'll deal with it. His jaw set in a stubborn line. But I'm not letting a group of old men in suits tell me who I can and can't marry. Real or fake? The fierce protectiveness in his voice surprised her. This wasn't about business strategy anymore, this was personal. She'd bruised his pride, maybe, or tapped into some deeper anger at the board's control over his life. Either way, it made him seem more human. More real. Okay, Ava said. I'll meet your board. But you owe me. Add it to the contract. The corner of his mouth lifted. What do you want? Higher compensation? Better benefits? Answers, Ava said. You know everything about me from your background check. I know nothing about you except what's on Wikipedia. Ethan sat back, studying her. What do you want to know? Everything. If I'm going to convince people we're in love, I need to know who you actually are. For a long moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. Okay. Fair. What's your first question? Ava thought about it. She could ask about his company, his family, his plans. But what she really wanted to know was simpler and more complicated. Why were you alone in that bar? She asked. You're a billionaire in Vegas. You could have had any company you wanted. Why were you sitting by yourself drinking whiskey like you were trying to forget something? Ethan's expression went carefully blank. That's a heavy question for our first real conversation. You said I could ask anything. I did, didn't I? He was quiet for a moment, gaze distant. I was alone because I'm always alone. Even in rooms full of people, I'm alone. It's the price of success, I guess. Or paranoia. Or both. That's not an answer. No, it's not. He met her eyes. The real answer is that I was supposed to be at a bachelor party, my VP's kid brother getting married. But halfway through the night, surrounded by drunk 20-somethings talking about love like it's simple, I realized I couldn't do it. Couldn't pretend to be happy about marriage when mine was going to be a business transaction. So you left. So I left. And wandered until I found a quiet bar with good whiskey and low lighting. And then you showed up. And ruined your solitude? And reminded me what conversation felt like. His smile was slight but genuine. You talked to me like I was a person, not a portfolio. Do you know how rare that is? Ava thought about her own life, about how many people saw her as a stepping stone or a threat or a resource, never just. Ava. Yeah, she said quietly. I do. The plane hit turbulence, jolting them both. The flight attendant appeared to clear their plates, and the moment of vulnerability passed. But something had shifted between them, some small crack in the walls they'd both built. By the time they landed in Chicago, it was early evening. The city sprawled below them, all steel and glass and November gray. Ava's heart squeezed. Home. Except it wasn't her home anymore, was it? Her studio apartment, her careful routines, all of it was about to be packed up and stored away. A black SUV waited on the tarmac. Ethan's security team, 3 men in dark suits who moved with military precision, loaded their bags while Patricia appeared from a second vehicle with a tablet and a determined expression. Schedule update, she said briskly. Board meeting tomorrow at 10. I've arranged for a stylist to come to the penthouse at 7 to prepare Mrs. Hale. There's also dinner tonight with your mother at 8. Ethan's jaw tightened. Patricia. She insisted. Said if you're going to humiliate the family with a secret marriage, the least you can do is introduce your bride properly. Patricia's tone was perfectly neutral, but Ava caught the eye roll she suppressed. I tried to postpone. She wouldn't hear it. Of course she wouldn't. Ethan looked at Ava, something apologetic in his expression. My mother is difficult. If you want to skip it, I'll understand. And miss meeting my new mother-in-law? Ava forced a smile she didn't feel. I wouldn't dream of it. The drive to Ethan's penthouse took 20 minutes through downtown traffic. Ava watched the city slide past, familiar streets suddenly foreign now that she was arriving as someone else. Mrs. Hale. The billionaire's wife. The woman in the tabloid photos. The building was on Lakeshore Drive, all modern glass and architectural drama. The lobby was marble and money, the elevator required a key card, and when the doors opened directly into Ethan's penthouse, Ava's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Lake Michigan. The space was enormous, open concept, minimalist furniture, art on the walls that was probably worth more than her student loans. It was beautiful and sterile and desperately lonely. Home sweet home, Ethan said, setting down his bag. Your room is this way. He led her down a hallway to a bedroom that was bigger than her entire apartment. King bed, walk-in closet, attached bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. The windows faced the lake, where November waves churned gray and cold. Patricia had your things moved over, Ethan said, gesturing to her suitcases in the corner. If you need anything else, furniture, clothes, whatever, just let her know. This is fine, Ava said faintly. More than fine. Good. He checked his watch. Dinner's in 2 hours. I'll let you settle in. He started to leave, then paused in the doorway. Ava? Thank you. For doing this. I know it's insane, but, thank you. Thank me after we survive your mother, Ava said. His laugh was short and humorless. If we survive my mother, we can survive anything. After he left, Ava sank onto the bed and stared at her reflection in the window. She looked the same face, same person. But everything else had changed. Her phone buzzed. Madison, are you back in Chicago? I'm coming over. Ava typed quickly, can't tonight. Dinner with the in-laws. Tomorrow? In-laws? Ava, what is happening to your life? Honestly? No idea. But I'll explain soon. Promise. She set down the phone and looked at the ring on her finger. In the gray Chicago light, it looked less like a diamond and more like a dare. What would you sacrifice for a chance to start over? Tell us in the comments. 6 months. She could do 6 months of anything. Even becoming someone she didn't recognize. She just hoped she'd recognize herself when it was over. The restaurant was the kind of place where the menu didn't list prices and the sommelier wore a suit nicer than Ava's entire wardrobe used to be. Used to be, because Patricia had somehow filled her closet with designer everything in the span of a few hours. Now Ava sat in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than her monthly rent, trying not to fidget while Ethan's mother studied her like a bug under a microscope. Victoria Hale was 60-something, surgically perfect, and terrifying. She wore pearls and disapproval in equal measure, her silver hair styled in a way that probably required an engineering degree. Everything about her screamed old money and older grudges. So, Victoria said, her voice cut crystal sharp. Ava Richardson. The woman who somehow convinced my son to marry her in a Las Vegas chapel. She took a sip of wine. How enterprising of you. Mother, Ethan said, warning in his tone. What? I'm simply curious about my new daughter-in-law. Victoria's smile was all teeth. Particularly given that I'd never heard her name until I saw it splashed across page 6 this morning. Ava felt Ethan tense beside her, but she kept her voice level. I understand this is surprising, Mrs. Hale. It was surprising for me too. Was it? Victoria's eyebrow arched. You expect me to believe that you, a financial analyst at a mid-tier firm, just happened to bump into one of the country's most eligible bachelors and spontaneously married him? No ulterior motives whatsoever? I expect you to believe whatever you choose to believe, Ava said calmly. But yes, that's what happened. How convenient for you. Mother, enough. Ethan's voice went cold. Ava is my wife. You will treat her with respect. Respect is earned, darling. Not bought with a quickie wedding and a ring that probably came from your emergency jewelry stash. Victoria turned her laser focus back to Ava. Tell me, dear. What exactly do you know about my son? Ava met her gaze steadily. I know he's brilliant. I know he built his company from nothing and revolutionized cloud computing infrastructure. I know he works too hard, cares too much about other people's opinions, and drinks his coffee black with exactly 1 sugar. Wikipedia could have told you the first parts. Observation could have given you the coffee order. Victoria leaned forward. But do you know why he's never brought a woman home to meet me? Why has every relationship he's ever had been carefully orchestrated by that assistant of his? That's enough, Ethan said sharply. It's because he's afraid, Victoria continued, ignoring him. Afraid of becoming his father. Afraid of failing. Afraid of being human enough to actually need someone. Her smile turned cruel. So tell me, Ava. Are you here because you see a broken boy you think you can fix? Or because you see a bank account you think you can access? The words landed like slaps. Around them, the restaurant continued its quiet hum, the clink of glasses, murmured conversations, the soft jazz in the background. But at their table, silence crackled like electricity. Ava set down her wine glass with deliberate care. She thought about walking away, about ending this farce before it really began. But then she looked at Ethan, at the rigid set of his shoulders, the muscle jumping in his jaw, the way he was staring at his plate like he wanted to disappear into it. He looked exactly like he had in that bar. Exhausted. Haunted. Alone. And Ava realized something. Victoria Hale had spent years perfecting this performance. The cutting remarks, the surgical strikes designed to make people feel small. It was a power play, and Ethan had been living under it his entire life. Well, Ava had grown up with a grandmother who could reduce grown men to tears with a single look. She knew how to handle women who weaponized disappointment. You want to know why I'm here? Ava asked, her voice steady. I'm here because your son is the first person in 3 years who saw me as more than a resume or a stepping stone. I'm here because when we talked, he listened. Really listened, like what I said mattered. She leaned forward, matching Victoria's posture. And I'm here because he deserves better than a mother who treats him like a corporate asset instead of a human being. Victoria's eyes widened fractionally. How dare you? I dare because someone needs to, Ava said. You've spent this entire dinner trying to figure out my angle, assuming I must want something from him. But maybe, just maybe, I'm here because I actually like him. Because he makes me laugh. Because being with him feels right in a way nothing else in my carefully planned life ever has. A pretty speech, Victoria said coldly. But words are cheap, dear. So is judgment. Ava picked up her wine. But since we're being honest, let's address the real issue. You don't care whether I love your son or not. You care that he made a choice without consulting you first. That he did something spontaneous and messy and human, and you can't control it. The silence that followed was arctic. Then, impossibly, Victoria laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh, but it wasn't entirely cruel either. More, surprised. Like Ava had done something unexpected. Well, Victoria said, sitting back. At least you have a spine. Harrison's wives never did, they just simpered and spent his money. She studied Ava with new interest. What did you say your background was? I didn't. But since you asked, I grew up in Detroit. My mother was a nurse, my grandmother cleaned houses. I put myself through Northwestern on scholarships and student loans that I'm still paying off. No trust fund? No family connections? Just student debt and determination. Victoria's lips twitched. I grew up in South Boston. My father was a dock worker, my mother took in sewing. I met Harrison when he was still eating ramen and coding in his garage. She took a long sip of wine. Everyone assumed I married him for money he didn't have yet. I married him because he was the only man I'd ever met who wasn't intimidated by me. Ava blinked, surprised by the admission. I'm not saying I approve of this marriage, Victoria continued. I think it's reckless and probably doomed. But, she looked at Ethan, something softening in her expression. You did pick someone who can hold her own. That's something. Ethan, who'd been silent through the entire exchange, finally spoke. Is that your version of a blessing, Mother? It's my version of not having you written out of the will just yet. Victoria signaled for the waiter. Now, let's order. I want to hear more about this whirlwind romance. And Ava, she fixed her with a sharp look. If you're going to survive this family, you'll need to learn when to use that spine and when to bend. We don't reward martyrs. We reward survivors. The dinner that followed was still tense, but the hostility had shifted into something more like grudging acceptance. Victoria interrogated Ava about her work, her education, her opinions on everything from tax policy to modern art. Every question felt like a test. Ava answered honestly when she could, deflected when she couldn't, and tried not to think about the fact that she was lying to this woman about the fundamental nature of her marriage. By the time dessert arrived, some architectural marvel involving chocolate and gold leaf, Ava's head was pounding and her face hurt from maintaining a pleasant expression. So the board meets tomorrow, Victoria said, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. They'll try to intimidate you, make you feel inadequate. Don't let them. I wasn't planning on it, Ava said. Good. Victoria stood, gathering her clutch. Ethan, walk me to my car. As mother and son moved toward the entrance, Ava sagged in her chair, suddenly exhausted. She'd survived. Barely. But she'd survived. A few minutes later, Ethan returned alone. He slid back into his seat, something unreadable in his expression. I'm sorry, he said quietly. She's terrifying? Brilliant? Possibly a witch? Ava managed a tired smile. I know. But I get it now. Get what? Why are you the way you are? Why do you build walls and negotiate contracts and assume everyone wants something? Ava traced the rim of her wine glass. You learn from a master. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. She told me she likes you. She said I have a spine. That's not the same as liking me. From her, it's the same thing. He reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers. What you said, about me listening, about it feeling right. Did you mean any of that? Or was it just for show? Ava looked at his hand, so close to hers. She could tell him it was all performance, keep this strictly business. That would be safer. Simpler. But she was tired of it. Tired of safety. Some of it was a show, she admitted. But not all of it. You did listen, that night in Vegas. And it did feel right, even if the circumstances were insane. Ethan's fingers closed around hers, warm, solid, real. Then maybe this doesn't have to be completely fake. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we could be friends. Real ones, not just contract partners. He squeezed her hand gently. These next 6 months are going to be hard enough. We might as well not hate each other. Ava felt something crack in her chest, some wall she'd built brick by brick over years of professional distance and emotional caution. Friends, she repeated. I can make friends. Good. He released her hand, but the warmth lingered. Because tomorrow, you're meeting the scariest people in my life. And they make my mother look like a teddy bear. Great, Ava muttered. Can't wait. They left the restaurant together, stepping out into Chicago's November cold. The wind off the lake cut through Ava's coat, and without thinking, Ethan put his arm around her shoulders, tucking her against his side. It should have felt awkward, this choreographed intimacy, this business arrangement pretending to be romance. But instead, it felt natural. Like maybe they were both just two people trying to stay warm in a cold world. The SUV was waiting. As they climbed in, Ava caught sight of a photographer across the street, camera raised. Tomorrow, there will be more photos. More headlines. More lies built on fragments of truth. But tonight, Driving through Chicago with Ethan's warmth still lingering on her shoulders, Ava let herself imagine what it might be like if this were real. If she really were the woman who'd captured a billionaire's heart. If the fairy tale the tabloids were selling was actually true. It was a dangerous fantasy. She knew that. She entertained it anyway. Back at the penthouse, they said goodnight in the hallway between their rooms. Ethan lingered in his doorway, tie loosened, looking more human than she'd seen him yet. "Thank you," he said. "For tonight. For standing up to her. He paused. For not running. The night's not over yet," Ava said lightly. "I might still make a break for it. If you do, take the jet. It's faster." She laughed, and he smiled, a real smile, not the practiced one he wore for cameras. "Good night, Ava." "Good night, Ethan." In her room, Ava changed into pajamas and sat by the window, looking out at the lake. Her phone buzzed with messages, Madison demanding details, her mom asking if the tabloid photos were real, coworkers she hadn't heard from in months suddenly very interested in her life. She ignored them all and pulled up the photos from Vegas instead. The ones of her and Ethan leaving the chapel, laughing like they'd discovered the world's best secret. They looked happy. They looked real. Ava touched the screen, tracing the curve of her own smile, and wondered which version of herself she was looking at, the woman pretending to be in love, or the woman who was starting to forget it was pretending. Tomorrow would bring the board, more scrutiny, more performance. But tonight, alone in her borrowed bedroom in her fake husband's penthouse, Ava let herself feel something dangerously close to hope. It was probably a mistake. But then again, she was getting good at those. The stylist arrived at 6:30 in the morning with enough luggage to outfit a small army. Her name was Dominique, she had purple hair and a French accent that may or may not have been real, and she took one look at Ava and declared, "We have work to do, Sherry." 2 hours later, Ava barely recognized herself. The woman in the mirror wore a tailored navy suit that fit like it had been made for her, because it had been, apparently, overnight. Her hair was styled in soft waves that looked effortless but had required 40 minutes of professional intervention. Her makeup was subtle but perfect, emphasizing her dark eyes and rich brown skin. She looked powerful. Polished. Like someone who belonged in boardrooms and penthouses. She looked like Mrs. Ethan Hale. "Magnifique," Dominique pronounced, stepping back to admire her work. "Now you look like you could buy and sell them all." "I'm not sure that's the impression we're going for," Ava said. "No? Then what impression are we creating?" Ava thought about it. "That I'm smart enough to keep up, strong enough to stand my ground, and real enough to be worth loving." Dominique's smile turned genuine. "Ah. Now that is much harder than simply looking rich." She packed up her supplies. "But I think you can manage it. You have something they will not expect." "What's that?" "Authenticity." Dominique patted her shoulder. "In a world of performance, that is revolutionary." After she left, Ava stood alone in her bedroom, trying to calm her racing heart. Through the door, she could hear Ethan moving around, the low murmur of his voice as he talked on the phone. Probably Patricia, running through strategy one last time. Her own phone buzzed. "Madison, call me before you do anything crazy." "Oh wait, too late." Ava smiled despite her nerves and typed back, "Wish me luck. Meeting the board today." "Your meeting is board?" "Ava. What is your life?" "Honestly? No idea anymore. I'm coming over tonight. We're talking. Really talking. And you're going to tell me what's actually happening." Ava hesitated, then remembered what Ethan had said on the plane. Tell her the truth. She needs someone to talk to. "Okay. Tonight. I'll explain everything." "You better. And Ava? Whatever this is, be careful. Please." The concern in Madison's message made Ava's throat tight. She was lying to everyone. Her coworkers, her family, the world. The only honest relationship she had left was with the man she was fake married to, and that was complicated enough to require legal documentation. A knock at her door. "Ava? We should leave in 10 minutes. She opened the door to find Ethan in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than a decent used car. He looked every inch the billionaire CEO, sharp, confident, untouchable. Then his eyes landed on her and something flickered across his face. "You look..." He paused. "You look perfect." "Dominique's doing," Ava said, suddenly self-conscious. "No. It's you." He stepped closer, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and understated. "Are you ready for this?" "No. But I'm doing it anyway." "That's the spirit." He smiled slightly. "Remember, you're smarter than most of them, more educated than half of them, and unlike them, you actually earned your position instead of inheriting it. I didn't earn this position. I accidentally married into it while drunk." "Details." He offered his arm. "Shall we?" The drive to Hale Tech headquarters took 30 minutes through morning traffic. Ethan spent most of it on his phone, firing off emails and taking calls in the terse shorthand of someone used to making million-dollar decisions between traffic lights. Ava watched the city slide past and tried not to throw up. The building was all glass and steel, 40 stories of architectural ambition in the heart of downtown. They entered through a private garage, took a private elevator, and emerged into a top-floor corridor that screamed executive power. Patricia was waiting, tablet in hand, perfectly coiffed as always. They're assembled in the main conference room. 11 board members, all present. I've sent you both the brief with names and backgrounds. Who's going to be the biggest problem?" Ava asked. Patricia's smile was thin. "All of them. But particularly Richard Thornton. He wanted you to marry his daughter. And Gerald Lancaster, who thinks anyone under 50 is fundamentally untrustworthy." "Fantastic," Ava muttered. "You'll be fine," Patricia said. "Just remember, you're not asking for their approval. You're informing them of a decision that's already been made." The conference room doors were massive mahogany things that probably cost more than Ava's student loans. Ethan paused with his hand on the handle. "Last chance to run," he said quietly. "And miss all this fun?" Ava squared her shoulders. "Let's go." The room fell silent as they entered. 11 pairs of eyes fixed on Ava with varying degrees of curiosity, skepticism, and outright hostility. The board members sat around a table that could have hosted a small nation's peace talks. Most were men in their 60s and 70s, though there were 2 women, both silver-haired and sharp-eyed. "Gentlemen. Ladies." Ethan's voice carried easy authority as he guided Ava to 2 seats at the head of the table. "Thank you for making time on short notice. I'd like to introduce my wife, Ava Hale." The use of her new last name sent a jolt through her. She kept her expression neutral as she sat, folding her hands on the table to hide their trembling. "Mrs. Hale," said a barrel-chested man with a red face and aggressive eyebrows. "Richard Thornton," Ava's memory supplied. "Father of the rejected bride." "What a surprise you are." "I imagine so, Mr. Thornton," Ava replied evenly. "Perhaps you could help us understand," said an older woman with steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. "We were under the impression Ethan was engaged to Vanessa Carmichael. Yet here you are, having married him in Las Vegas of all places." She made Vegas sound like a plague site. "Plans change, Mrs. Lancaster," Ava said. "Plans backed by months of negotiation and strategic alignment," another man interjected. He was younger than the others, maybe mid-50s, with the kind of tan that came from yacht ownership. "This isn't a game, Mrs. Hale. Hale Tech's public image directly impacts stock prices, investor confidence, and market position. I'm aware of how businesses work, Mr. Harrison. James Harrison." He leaned forward. "Are you? Because from where we're sitting, you appear to be a random analyst who seduced our CEO during a weekend bender." "James," Ethan said, voice dropping to dangerous territory. "It's a fair question," Thornton rumbled. "We know nothing about this woman. Her background, her intentions, her My background, Ava interrupted, includes a dual degree in finance and economics from Northwestern, 3 years of market analysis at Sterling and Associates, and enough student debt to prove I earned every opportunity one have. She met Thornton's eyes. As for my intentions, I married Ethan because I love him. I'm sorry if that's inconvenient for your strategic planning. The word love hung in the air like a grenade. Mrs. Lancaster, Gerald's wife, Ava realized, studied her with new interest. You love him? Yes. After knowing him for how long? Long enough to know he's brilliant, dedicated, and tired of being treated like a chess piece in other people's games. Ava felt Ethan tense beside her but pressed on. You want to know if I'm good for his image? Fine. I'm educated, articulate, and I don't have any scandals in my past unless you count parking tickets. But more importantly, I make him happy. Or I'm trying to. That should count for something. Happiness doesn't affect quarterly earnings, Thornton said dismissively. No, but burnout does. Ava turned to face him fully. You want Ethan to lead this company for the next 20 years? Then maybe stop treating him like a performing monkey and start treating him like a human being who needs support, not just supervision. The silence that followed could have cut glass. Then Gerald Lancaster, the elderly man Patricia had warned about, laughed. It was a rusty sound, like he didn't use it often. Well, he said, eyes twinkling. She's got fire, Ethan. I'll give her that. She's got a point, too, Mrs. Lancaster added. We have been rather overbearing lately. Overbearing? Ethan's voice was tight. You gave me an ultimatum. Marry someone you approved of or face removal from my own company. Because your lifestyle was becoming a liability, Thornton snapped. The tabloid stories, the string of inappropriate relationships. One relationship, Ethan corrected. 2 years ago. With a woman who turned out to be writing a tell-all book. Since then, I've been a monk. But because my father burned through wives like Kleenex, you assume I'll do the same. Can you blame us? James Harrison asked. Yes, Ava said quietly. You can blame yourselves for treating a man's past trauma as a character flaw instead of something he overcame. Every eye swung to her. Ethan isn't his father, Ava continued. And the fact that you keep comparing them says more about your limitations than his. Harrison Hale was brilliant and cruel. Ethan is brilliant and kind. If you can't see the difference, maybe you're not qualified to sit on this board. The silence that followed was absolute. Thornton's face went from red to purple. How dare you? She dares because she's right, Mrs. Lancaster said crisply. We have been holding Harrison's sins over Ethan's head for years. It's unproductive and unfair. Thank you, Margaret, Ethan said quietly. Don't thank me yet. Margaret fixed him with a stern look. You did spring this on us rather dramatically. We're entitled to some skepticism. You're entitled to respect my decisions, Ethan countered. I'm 32 years old. I run a multi-billion-dollar company. I think I can choose my own life. Even if that choice was made while intoxicated? Thornton challenged. Some of the best decisions are, Gerald Lancaster said with a chuckle. I proposed to Margaret after 6 whiskeys and a jazz concert. 60 years this December. His wife smiled. You were singing when you asked. Very off-key. The point is, Gerald continued, marriage is always a gamble. Sober or drunk, planned or spontaneous. What matters is the commitment afterward. He looked at Ethan and Ava. Are you committed to making this work? Yes, Ethan said without hesitation. Every face turned to Ava. This was it. The moment where she could end this insanity. Tell them the truth, walk away, save herself from 6 months of lies. But she looked at Ethan, at the tension in his shoulders, the guardedness in his eyes, the fear he was trying so hard to hide. She thought about him alone in that bar, drinking whiskey like medicine. About him telling her she made him feel like a person instead of a portfolio. She thought about Victoria's final words, we don't reward martyrs. We reward survivors. Yes, Ava heard herself say. I'm committed. Something in Ethan's expression shifted, surprise, maybe, or gratitude, or something more complicated. The board members exchanged glances, some hostile, some thoughtful, all skeptical. Then I suppose, Margaret Lancaster said, we'll have to give you a chance to prove it. Conditional approval, 6 months to demonstrate this marriage is genuine and beneficial to the company's image. If at the end of that period we're not satisfied, we revisit the CEO question. That's acceptable, Ethan said. Is it acceptable to you, Mrs. Hale? Gerald asked pointedly. Everyone waited. Ava took a breath. Yes. 6 months to prove this is real. That works for me. Because it was exactly the timeline of their contract. Which meant they just had to maintain the lie for the agreed-upon duration. Easy. Except nothing about this felt easy anymore. The meeting continued for another hour, discussions of PR strategy, public appearances, interview opportunities. Patricia took notes with military efficiency while Ava tried to memorize names and alliances and who hated whom. By the time they emerged, Ava's head was pounding and her face hurt from maintaining her composed expression. You were incredible, Ethan said as the elevator descended. The way you shut down Thornton. I probably made an enemy. You made 10 enemies when you married me. Might as well make them interesting enemies. Despite her exhaustion, Ava smiled. Your board is terrifying? Invasive? A necessary evil? I was going to say protective. In their own dysfunctional way. She leaned against the elevator wall. They care about you. They're just terrible at showing it. That's generous. It's true. The elevator doors opened to the parking garage. Margaret Lancaster likes you. So does Gerald. The others, they're scared. Scared of losing money, losing control, losing the company to bad publicity. Fear makes people cruel. Ethan studied her as they walked to the SUV. You're too good at this. Reading people, finding the angle, saying exactly the right thing. Is that a problem? No. He opened her door. It's impressive. And slightly terrifying. During the drive back, Ava felt the adrenaline draining from her body, leaving exhaustion in its wake. She'd survived the board. Lied to their faces with confidence and composure. Defend a man she barely knew like he was worth defending. The scary part? It didn't feel like lying. When she'd called Ethan kind, when she'd said he made her happy, those words had tasted like truth. Ava? Ethan's voice pulled her from her thoughts. You okay? Just tired. That was a lot. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be. She turned to look at him. That's your life, right? Every day. People judging you, testing you, waiting for you to fail. Pretty much. How do you stand it? He was quiet for a long moment. Most days, I don't. I just survived it. His eyes met hers. But today was easier. Because you were there. The words settled between them, heavy with meaning neither of them was quite ready to unpack. Back at the penthouse, Patricia was waiting with schedules and strategies and a list of upcoming social obligations that made Ava want to cry. But she took the briefing, made the appropriate notes, and promised to review everything later. Finally, blissfully, she was alone in her room. Her phone showed 23 missed calls and over 100 texts. The Sterling and Associates group chat was going nuclear. Someone had leaked that she was married to Ethan Hale and her co-workers were losing their minds. And at the bottom, a message from her direct supervisor, we need to talk. Tomorrow. 9 a.m., conference room B. Ava's stomach dropped. This was it. The conflict of interest conversation. The moment where her real life and her fake life collided. She should call. Explain. Get ahead of the narrative. Instead, she lay down on her bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about the lies she'd told today and the truths that had gotten tangled up in them. Somewhere in this mess of contracts and performances and carefully crafted deceptions, something real was growing. She could feel it, in the way Ethan looked at her, in the way she defended him, in the warmth that bloomed in her chest when he smiled. It was dangerous. It was impossible. It was happening anyway. And Ava had no idea how to stop it, or if she even wanted to. Ava woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of her entire life imploding. She'd fallen asleep in her clothes, exhaustion winning out over everything else. Now morning light streamed through the windows, and her phone was buzzing with the fury of 1,000 angry hornets. The first message was from her boss. The meeting moved to 8 a.m. Don't be late. The second was from Madison. I'm outside. Let me up or I'm calling the fire department. The third was from her mother. Baby, are those pictures real? Call me. Your grandmother is having palpitations. Ava groaned and dragged herself out of bed. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror was a disaster: smudged makeup, hair matted on one side, the imprint of expensive bedding creased into her cheek. She looked like what she was, a woman in over her head. A knock at her bedroom door. Ava? Your friend Madison is downstairs demanding entry. Should I tell security to let her up? Ethan's voice. Too alert for whatever ungodly hour this was. Ava opened the door. He was already dressed, looking infuriatingly put together in dark jeans and a gray sweater. Behind him, she could see the kitchen where he'd apparently made coffee. What time is it? She asked. 6:30. Why are you awake? I'm always awake at 6:30. Why is your friend threatening my security team with bodily harm? Despite everything, Ava almost smiled. That's just Madison. She's persistent. Should I be worried? Only if you've done something to me. Have you? Not yet. The corner of his mouth lifted. Should I let her up? Ava thought about it. She'd promised Madison the truth, but having that conversation at 6:30 in the morning while looking like a disaster seemed suboptimal. On the other hand, Madison knew where she lived. Knew all her passwords. Had a spare key to her apartment. There was no escaping this conversation. Let her up, Ava said. But warn security she's probably going to say some very unflattering things about you. Noted. 10 minutes later, Ava had washed her face and changed into yoga pants and a northwestern sweatshirt, armor of normalcy in a world gone insane. She emerged from her room to find Madison standing in the penthouse living room, spinning slowly with wide eyes. Holy shit, Madison breathed. This is where you live now? Temporarily. Ava, this place is bigger than our entire apartment building. Madison turned to face her, and her expression shifted from awe to concern. Are you okay? Really okay? Ava started, but Madison crossed the room and pulled her into a fierce hug. You scared me, Madison whispered. You disappeared, got married, and now you're living in a billionaire's penthouse like it's normal. I thought I knew you. You do know me, Ava said, hugging her back. I'm still me. Are you? Madison pulled back, studying her face. Because the Ava I know would never marry someone she just met. Would never quit her job. I didn't quit. Would never completely upend her life without a spreadsheet and a 5-year plan. Ava winced. About that. We should talk. You think? Madison glanced toward the kitchen where Ethan had diplomatically retreated. Is he listening? Probably. Good. He should hear this too. Madison raised her voice. Mr. Hale? You can stop pretending to make breakfast and join this conversation. There was a pause, then Ethan appeared in the doorway, coffee mug in hand. I was actually making breakfast. Were you planning to poison it? Madison, Ava said. What? I'm your best friend. I'm allowed to be suspicious of the stranger you married. Fair enough. Ethan set down his mug and moved to stand beside Ava, not touching, but close enough to present a united front. You want the truth? That would be refreshing. Ava and Ethan exchanged glances. This was it. the first person outside their tiny circle who would know the whole truth. It's an arrangement, Ava said quietly. The marriage. It's fake. Madison's eyes went wide. I'm sorry, what? So they told her. Everything. The drunken chapel wedding, the board ultimatum, the contract with its clauses and compensation. Ava watched Madison's expression cycle through shock, disbelief, anger, and finally something that might have been grudging understanding. So let me get this straight, Madison said when they finished. You accidentally married him while drunk. Then instead of getting an annulment like normal people, you decided to fake a relationship for 6 months to save his company and get paid $200,000. When you say it like that, it sounds insane, Ava muttered. Because it is insane. Madison started pacing. Ava, do you hear yourself? This isn't a rom-com. This is fraud. This is lying to his board, to the public, to everyone. It's a business arrangement, Ethan said calmly. Unusual, yes. But legal. Legal doesn't mean smart. Madison whirled on him. And you, what kind of person asks someone to fake marry them instead of just dealing with your issues like an adult? The kind who's about to lose everything he's built, Ethan replied, an edge entering his voice. I didn't force Ava into this. She agreed. She's being compensated fairly. Compensated. Madison laughed bitterly. You're paying her to pretend to love you. Do you know how messed up that is? I'm paying her for her time and her discretion, Ethan corrected. The pretending to love me part is unfortunately necessary but entirely professional. Professional, Madison repeated. She looked at Ava. And you're okay with this? Ava thought about the board meeting yesterday. About defending Ethan like he was worth defending. About the way her heart had skipped when he'd said today was easier because she was there. I don't know, she admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. Madison sank onto the couch, head in her hands. This is going to blow up. You know that, right? Secrets like this always come out. Not if we're careful, Ethan said. No one's that careful. Madison looked up at him. And when it does blow up, Ava's the one who'll pay the price. You're rich, you'll bounce back. But her? Her reputation, her career, her life? Destroyed. The words hung in the air like an indictment. Ethan's expression shifted, something flickering across his features that might have been guilt. I won't let that happen. You can't control everything, Madison said. No matter how much money you throw at it. Maybe not. But I can protect her. Legally, financially, professionally. It's all in the contract. Contracts don't protect people from pain, Madison said quietly. Only consequences. Ava felt something tighten in her chest. Madison was right, and they both knew it. This arrangement, no matter how carefully structured, was a house of cards. One strong wind and everything would collapse. But she'd already made her choice. Already signed on for 6 months of beautiful lies. I appreciate your concern, Ava said to Madison. Really? But this is my decision. My risk. And I'm asking you as my best friend to support it. Even if I think it's a mistake? Especially then. Because if it is a mistake, I'm going to need you to help me survive it. Madison's eyes filled with tears. I hate this. I hate everything about this. I know. But I love you. So I guess I'm stuck helping you with your insane fake marriage. Ava crossed to the couch and sat beside her. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm still going to tell you I told you so when this inevitably explodes. Madison wiped her eyes, then fixed Ethan with a hard stare. And you, if you hurt her, contract or no contract, I will ruin you. I work in tech PR. I know how to destroy reputations. Noted, Ethan said, but there was something almost like respect in his voice. For what it's worth, I don't want to hurt her. No one ever does. But they do it anyway. After Madison left, with multiple promises to call daily and threats of bodily harm if Ethan stepped out of line, Ava checked the time and her stomach dropped. 7:15. Her meeting with her boss was in 45 minutes, and Sterling and Associates was a 30-minute drive in good traffic. "I have to go," she said, already heading toward her room. "Work emergency." "What kind of emergency?" "The kind where they've realized I'm married to the CEO of a company we're investigating and want to know why I didn't disclose a massive conflict of interest." She emerged minutes later in a black pantsuit, hair pulled into a professional bun. "If I'm not back by noon, assume I've been fired and am drinking my feelings somewhere." "Ava. I knew this was coming." "It's fine." "It's not fine." Ethan caught her arm gently as she headed for the door. "Do you want me to come with you?" "Talk to them?" "And say what?" "Sorry my wife didn't mention our marriage, we were too busy drunkenly eloping." Ava shook her head. "This is my mess. I'll handle it." "It's our mess." The simple statement made her pause. Our mess. Like they were a team. Like this was real. "I'll be fine," she said softly. "I've survived worse." But as the elevator descended and Chicago morning traffic swallowed her car, Ava wasn't sure that was true. She'd survived a lot of things: poverty, prejudice, the grind of building a career from nothing. But she'd never survived anything quite like this. Sterling and Associates occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise. Ava had walked through these doors every workday for 3 years. Now, as she entered, she felt like an imposter. Whispers followed her through the lobby. Curious stares from coworkers she'd eaten lunch with last week. By the time she reached her floor, everyone had stopped pretending to work and was openly gawking. "Conference room B," her supervisor's assistant said, not meeting her eyes. "They're waiting." Conference room B was typically used for terminations. Ava squared her shoulders and walked in. Her boss, Gerald Stevens, sat at the head of the table. Beside him were 2 people from HR and the firm's general counsel. It was an ambush disguised as a meeting. "Ava," Gerald said, his voice carefully neutral. "Please sit." She sat. "I assume you know why you're here." "Because I got married." "Because you got married to Ethan Hale, CEO of Hale Tech, a company this firm is actively investigating for potential acquisition fraud." Gerald's pleasant expression didn't change. "A fact you failed to disclose despite clear protocols about conflicts of interest." "I got married 3 days ago," Ava said. "In Vegas." Spontaneously. "I haven't been in the office since then to disclose anything." "But you knew about the investigation before you married him." It wasn't a question. Ava's mind raced. She could lie, say she didn't know. But they'd see through it. Could probably prove she'd accessed files about Hale Tech. "I knew," she admitted. "But I wasn't working on that part of the investigation. I was doing competitive analysis and revenue modeling. Nothing related to the fraud allegations." "Nevertheless, the perception of impropriety." "The perception," Ava interrupted, surprising herself, "is only improper if you think I'm corrupt." "Am I being accused of something?" The general counsel leaned forward. "Did you share any confidential information about this firm's investigation with Mr. Hale?" "No." "Did he ask you to?" "No." "Did you marry him with the intention of accessing information to aid Sterling's case or to undermine it?" "No." "I married him because..." She paused. "Because what?" "Because she was drunk? Because he listened? Because for 3 hours she'd felt seen? Because I wanted to." The HR representatives exchanged glances. "Ms. Richardson," the general counsel said carefully, "you understand that this marriage creates an untenable conflict of interest. You cannot continue working on any matters involving Hale Tech or its subsidiaries." "I understand. Furthermore, given the sensitive nature of our current investigation, we feel it's best if you take an immediate leave of absence. Unpaid, pending review of whether you can return to the firm at all." The words hit like physical blows. Leave of absence. Unpaid. Pending review. She was being fired. They just couldn't say it yet. How long? She asked, voice steady despite the panic rising in her throat. Minimum 6 months. 6 months. The exact length of her contract with Ethan. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor. And if the review determines I can't return, then your employment will be terminated. Ava sat in the silence that followed, processing. 3 years of work. Of late nights and early mornings, of proving herself over and over again. Gone. Just like that. Because she'd made one tequila-soaked mistake. I see, she said finally. Can I clear out my desk? We'll have your personal items sent to you, Gerald said, not unkindly. I'm sorry, Ava. You were a good analyst. But this situation. I understand. She stood, legs somehow steady. Thank you for the opportunity. She walked out with her head high. Made it to the elevator. Through the lobby. Onto the street. Then she stood on the corner of State and Adams, in the heart of downtown Chicago, and felt her carefully constructed life completely disintegrate. No job. No career. No plan. Just a fake marriage, a ring she didn't ask for, and 6 months of pretending everything was fine. Her phone rang. Ethan. How did it go? Ava looked up at the gray November sky and laughed. It came out slightly hysterical. I've been suspended, she said. 6 months. Unpaid. Possibly permanent. Silence. Then, where are you? Corner of State and Adams. Stay there. I'm sending a car. Ethan. Stay there, Ava. Please. 20 minutes later, the black SUV pulled up. But instead of just the driver, Ethan himself climbed out, looking windswept and worried. You didn't have to come, Ava said. Yes, I did. He studied her face. Are you okay? No. But I will be. She took a breath. This is what I signed up for, right? Consequences. Complications. Chaos. You signed up for compensation and a fake relationship. Not unemployment. Same package, apparently. Ava climbed into the SUV, and Ethan slid in beside her. Congratulations, Mr. Hale. You now have a wife with no job, no prospects, and nothing but time to spend your money. Ava. I'm fine. Really. I just need, her voice cracked. I just need a minute. So Ethan gave her a minute. And then another. And another. They drove through Chicago in silence while Ava stared out the window and tried to figure out who she was now that she wasn't Ava Richardson, financial analyst. Just Ava Hale, professional fake wife. It should have felt like failure. Somehow, it felt like freedom. And that was the most terrifying part of all. The penthouse felt like a museum when they returned, beautiful, expensive, and utterly lifeless. Ava went straight to her room, closed the door, and stared at her reflection in the window. Who is she now? Not the careful analyst who color-coded her life. Not the responsible daughter who sent money home every month. Not the ambitious professional climbing the corporate ladder. Just a woman who'd gambled everything on a lie and lost. A soft knock at her door. Ava? Can I come in? She should say no. Should maintain the boundaries they'd established, separate rooms, separate lives, business arrangement only. Yes, she said instead. Ethan entered carrying 2 glasses and a bottle of scotch that probably cost more than her rent used to. I thought you might need this. It's not even noon. Then consider it brunch. He poured 2 generous measures and handed her one. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. This is my fault. How is my suspension your fault? Because you married me. Because I needed you to solve my problems, and I didn't think about what it would cost you. He took a long drink. I'm exactly like my father after all. Using people and calling it business. Stop. Ava set down her glass. You're not using me. I chose this. Knew the risks. Did you? Ethan's eyes were dark with something that might have been guilt or anger or both. Because I don't think either of us actually thought about what would happen when the real world collided with our fake marriage. He was right. They'd been so focused on the board, on the 6-month timeline, on the carefully structured contract, they'd forgotten about everything else. Her job. His company investigation. The 1,000 small ways a lie this big could destroy everything it touched. So what do we do now? Ava asked. I don't know. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Patricia's already working on damage control. We can pay your salary for the suspension period, cover any. I don't want your money. Ava. I don't want your money, she repeated, voice rising. I want my life back. I want to wake up tomorrow and have this all be a bad dream. Her voice cracked. I want to stop pretending. The silence that followed was suffocating. Okay, Ethan said finally. Then let's stop. Ava looked up sharply. What? Let's stop pretending. End the arrangement. I'll tell the board the truth, take the vote of no confidence, and we'll both move on with our lives. His expression was carefully blank. You deserve better than this. It was the logical solution. The smart play. Walk away now before things got worse. So why did the thought make Ava's chest ache? What about you? She asked. What happens to you if the board removes you? I'll figure it out. Start something new. It's not like I'll starve. That's not what I asked. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Hale Tech is everything I've built. It's proof that I'm not my father, that I can create something lasting and good without destroying everyone around me. He stared into his scotch. If I lose it, I lose that proof. But keeping it isn't worth destroying you. The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples through everything Ava thought she understood about this arrangement. You actually care, she said softly. About what happens to me. This isn't just business anymore. No, Ethan admitted. It's not. When did that change? Maybe when you stood up to my mother. Or when you defended me to the board like I was worth defending. He set down his glass and moved closer. Or maybe it was always there, from that first night in Vegas when you called me out on my bullshit and made me laugh for the first time in months. Ava's heart was hammering. This was dangerous territory. The contract specified boundaries, professional distance, no emotional entanglement. But contracts couldn't legislate feelings. And what she was feeling right now was anything but professional. Ethan, she started, but her phone rang. Madison's name flashed on the screen. Take it, Ethan said, stepping back. I'll give you space. After he left, Ava answered. Hey, Mads. Don't hey Mads me. I just got a call from Jessie at Sterling. She said you've been suspended. Is that true? Yes. Ava. Madison's voice was gentle. I'm so sorry. I know how much that job meant to you. It's fine. I'll figure something out. Will you? Because from where I'm sitting, you just lost your career for a fake marriage that's supposed to last 6 months. What happens after that? It was the question Ava had been avoiding. The contract ended in 6 months. Ethan would get what he needed from the board, she'd get her payout, and they'd go their separate ways. Except the way her heart had just clenched when he'd offered to end it early suggested separate ways weren't going to be as simple as the contract implied. I don't know, Ava admitted. I'm making this up as I go. That's not like you. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I've been so busy planning every detail that I forgot how to actually live. Madison was quiet. This is about more than the job, isn't it? What do you mean? You're falling for him. The billionaire. Your fake husband. That's ridiculous, Ava said automatically. Is it? Because you sound different when you talk about him. Softer. Like you're not sure if you're lying anymore. Ava closed her eyes. Mads, I can't. The contract specifically. Screw the contract. I'm asking about your heart. My heart is fine. Liar. But Madison said it with affection. Just, be careful, okay? Men like him, they're used to getting what they want. And when the 6 months are up, he'll move on to whatever's next. I don't want you to be collateral damage. After they hung up, Ava sat with Madison's words echoing in her head. Collateral damage. That's what happened to people who forgot the difference between performance and reality. She needed air. Space. Something other than this beautiful cage. She found Ethan in his office, laptop open, phone pressed to his ear. He looked up when she appeared in the doorway, holding up one finger in a just-a-minute gesture. Don't care what it costs. Make it happen. No, by end of day. Fine. Call me when it's done. He hung up and gave her his full attention. Everything okay? I need to get out of here, Ava said. Go somewhere normal. Do something that doesn't involve contracts or pretending or... Okay. He stood immediately. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Somewhere you wouldn't normally go. Somewhere real. 20 minutes later, they were in Ethan's personal car, not the SUV with the driver, but an Audi that he drove himself, heading south out of downtown. Ava watched the expensive high-rises give way to neighborhoods, the sterile wealth replaced by corner stores and tiny restaurants and laundromats. Where are we going? Ethan asked. Take the next left. He did, and Ava guided him through streets she knew by heart. Past her old apartment building, past the bus stop where she'd waited every morning for 3 years, past the coffee shop where she'd written her entire thesis. Here, she said. Pull over here. They stopped in front of a small Caribbean restaurant wedged between a barber shop and a grocery store. The sign was hand-painted, the windows foggy with steam. Best jerk chicken in Chicago, Ava said. My grandmother used to bring me here when I was a kid. Inside, the restaurant was tiny and cramped and absolutely perfect. The walls were covered in photographs and faded posters. Reggae played from a speaker that had seen better days. The air smelled like allspice and Scotch bonnet peppers and home. An elderly woman behind the counter looked up, and her face split into a brilliant smile. Ava. Baby girl, where you been? Hi, Miss Cora. Ava found herself smiling for the first time all day. I've been busy. Busy? Miss Cora's eyes tracked to Ethan, then back to Ava, then to the ring on Ava's finger. Oh Lord. You went and got married without telling me? It was kind of sudden. I can see that. Miss Cora came around the counter, wiping her hands on her apron. Let me look at you. She took Ava's face in her hands, studying her with the intensity of someone who'd known her since childhood. You happy, baby? It was such a simple question. And such an impossible one to answer. I'm trying to be, Ava said honestly. Miss Cora's eyes softened with understanding. Then she turned to Ethan, and her expression went off. And who's this? This is Ethan. My husband. Husband. Miss Cora looked him up and down, taking in his expensive clothes and carefully casual posture. You look like money. I have some, Ethan admitted. That wasn't a compliment. But there was humor in her voice. You treat our Ava right? I'm trying to. Trying's not the same as doing. No, ma'am. It's not. They stared at each other for a long moment, some wordless negotiation happening. Then Miss Cora smiled. Well, any husband of Ava's gets fed properly. Sit, sit. I'll bring you the good stuff. She bustled away, and Ava and Ethan slid into a booth that had probably been there since the 80s. The vinyl was cracked, the table wobbled, and it was the most comfortable Ava had felt in days. She's intimidating, Ethan said. She's protective. There's a difference. Is there? Ava smiled. She knew my grandmother. Used to give me free meals when Mom was working double shifts and we couldn't afford groceries. She's seen me at my worst, homework at this table, crying over college rejections, celebrating my first real paycheck. Her throat tightened. She's more family than some of my actual family. Ethan was quiet, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You really are different here. Lighter. Because this is real. No performance, no strategy, no one expecting me to be someone I'm not. She met his eyes across the table. Do you have a place like this? Somewhere you can just be Ethan instead of Ethan Hale, billionaire CEO? No. The admission seemed to cost him something. I don't think I know how to just be Ethan anymore. I've been Ethan Hale for so long, I'm not sure where the person ends and the persona begins. That's sad. That's survival. Miss Cora returned with plates piled high, jerk chicken, rice and peas, fried plantains, festival bread. The kind of food that requires you to slow down and pay attention. They ate in comfortable silence. Ava watched Ethan's face as he tried the jerk chicken, saw his eyes widen at the heat and complexity of flavors. This is incredible, he said. Told you. How did you find this place? My grandmother cleaned houses in this neighborhood. Sometimes she'd bring me with her during school breaks, and Miss Cora would feed us. Ava took a bite of plantain, savoring the sweetness. Grandma died my sophomore year of college. Miss Cora came to the funeral, bringing enough food to feed everyone. Wouldn't take a penny for it. She sounds special. She was. Ava felt the familiar ache of loss. She's the one who taught me about being strong. About not letting the world make you small just because it's comfortable with you that way. Is that what you think I'm doing? Ethan asked quietly. Making you small? No. I think I'm doing it to myself. Ava set down her fork. I built this whole careful life, the right job, the right apartment, the right plan. And it was safe. But it was also suffocating. Like I was performing successful black woman instead of just being me. And now? Now I've lost the performance. Lost the job, the plan, the careful structure. And I'm terrified. She looked at him. But also, free? Is that insane? No. Ethan's hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching hers. I understand that. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to figure out what actually matters. What matters to you? He was quiet for a long moment, his blue eyes serious. I used to think it was the company. Proof I wasn't my father. But lately, he paused. Lately I think what matters is finding someone who sees me. Not the money or the power or the mistakes. Just me. The air between them felt electric. Ethan, Ava started. I know. The contract. The boundaries. I'm not trying to complicate things. He finally closed the distance, his fingers brushing hers. I just want you to know that what started as convenience has become something else for me. Something real. Ava's heart hammered. This was the moment where she should pull back, remind him of the agreement, and maintain professional distance. Instead, she turned her hand over and laced her fingers through his. For me too, she whispered. What happens when pretending becomes real? Drop your thoughts in the comments. They sat like that for a long moment, hands linked across the wobbly table in a tiny Caribbean restaurant, while the world outside continued spinning and their carefully constructed lies continued crumbling. Miss Cora appeared with dessert, rum cake and sweet potato pudding, and raised her eyebrows at their joined hands but said nothing. Just smiled knowingly and left them alone. By the time they left, the sun was setting, painting Chicago's sky in shades of orange and purple. The drive back felt different, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. At the penthouse, they stood in the hallway between their separate rooms, neither wanting to be the first to walk away. Thank you, Ava said. For today. For letting me show you something real. Thank you for trusting me with it. Ethan lifted their still joined hands, studying them. We should probably talk about what happens next. With us. probably. But Ava didn't move. Neither did he. The contract says, Ethan started. I don't care what the contract says. The words surprised them both. Do you? No. He stepped closer. I really don't. This was it. The moment where everything changed or stayed safely the same. Ava reached up, her hand cupping his face, feeling the slight stubble along his jaw. He went very still, barely breathing. Is this okay? She asked. More than okay. She kissed him. Not the performative kisses they'd shared for cameras. Not the drunken kiss from their wedding night that neither really remembered. This was real, soft and questioning and full of 6 months' worth of feelings they'd been trying to ignore. When they pulled apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Well, he said, voice rough. That's definitely not in the contract. Screw the contract. He laughed, and it was the most genuine sound she'd ever heard from him. What happened to the careful, responsible Ava Richardson? She got suspended from her job and decided to stop playing it safe. Ava pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Unless you want to stop? We can pretend this didn't happen, maintain boundaries. Ava. He cut her off with another kiss, this one deeper, more certain. I don't want to pretend anymore. They stumbled toward her room, or maybe his, neither of them quite sure and neither of them caring. The walls they'd so carefully built between them were gone, and what was left was messy and complicated and absolutely real. Later, wrapped in expensive sheets with Ethan's heartbeat steady under her ear, Ava thought about Madison's warning. About collateral damage in careful hearts and the danger of confusing performance with reality. But this didn't feel like a performance. We're already married. Then will you stay married to me? For real? Forever? Ava looked at this man who'd stumbled into her life in the most chaotic way possible. Who'd offered her a contract when what she needed was chaos. Who'd taught her that sometimes the best plans were no plans at all. Yes, she said. Yes to real. Yes to forever. Yes to all of it. He slid the sapphire onto her right hand, a promise to go with the diamond that had started it all. They kissed as the sun set, as Chicago glittered around them, as their impossible love story continued into its next chapter. No contracts. No pretending. No walls. Just two people who'd accidentally found each other and deliberately chosen to stay. It wasn't the life Ava had planned. It was so much better. The end. Sometimes the best love stories start with the worst decisions. Sometimes falling is the only way to learn how to fly. And sometimes, the person you accidentally marry turns out to be exactly who you needed all along. What's the craziest thing you've ever done for love? Tell us your story in the comments below. We love hearing about real-life romance chaos. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and stay tuned in for more interesting stories.